Hello and welcome to the Monday, November 8th, 2010 informational meeting. We'll call the meeting to order. We'll start off with our City Council staff report with Deborah A. Owen, City Clerk, Chief of Council Operations.
Thank you and good afternoon, Sioux Falls City Council. Just to address the 7 o'clock agenda tonight first, if we may. On item number 5, there's been a request by the Planning Department to withdraw that item. They plan to revise the ordinance and then bring it back to you for a first reading on the 15th of November. And so you'll need a vote to withdraw that. And that's all I have for notes on the 7 o'clock agenda. And just for wrapping up, as the council knows, I was able to attend. I serve on a board, an international board for municipal clerks, and just wanted to say we had it in Omaha, which was wonderful. It was downtown. The conference was at the Hilton, and then of course the rooms that we used to meet in were at the Quest Center, and what a beautiful facility that they had, and just fantastic. Downtown is just going to town in Omaha. So I was very proud to be able to show that off to a lot of our international delegates from that conference, even coming from South Africa and Great Britain. So it's just wonderful. Thank you.
Any questions for Deborah? Just one note on the Quest Center that Deborah was at. I was there for Bon Jovi a few months ago. I know, Bon Jovi. Hey, but it was good. Walking up to that facility, I got to tell you, I was pretty jealous because it's a pretty cool place. But after being in it for a while, I became proud of what that community had done. And that facility is just quite a jewel. You got to appreciate a place like that. All right, any other comments, thoughts for Deborah? Okay, seeing none, we'll move on to Mayor Huther. Welcome, Mike.
Thanks, Councilor Jameson. I appreciate it. I think our last concert that we had in Sioux Falls, I can remember, was Journey, and that was without Steve Perry. So, boy, if we can have Bon Jovi here in Sioux Falls, wouldn't that be wonderful for everyone? We've also got a lot of good things going on in Sioux Falls. I'll compare us against Omaha any day, and just touch on just a couple of them. Maybe not as grand, but I think just as important. Pettigrew Heights, that was an issue that we had talked about in this chamber a while back, and due to the good work of the citizens around that area, along with our police department and some others, we've seen a dramatic drop in our police calls there. So that's good news, and we'll continue to work on that neighborhood as well as others. Next week, we're going to give a presentation on the railroad relocation. I'd urge all of you to tune in if you're watching on TV, or come on down and learn about the railroad relocation project and how that's going and what are the next steps and when we would like to have that completed. Mark Cotter and his team will give that presentation. 8th Street is open today, Sioux Falls. Talk about exciting. It's not completed yet, but it's a good step in the process, and we're really excited not only about 8th Street, but also, of course, River Road and 41st Street and so many others. It's great. The street repair continues on Minnesota Avenue. I tell you, Chip Carlson and his team have really done a good job repairing those manhole covers, and when that's done, we'll all celebrate. We're building a new ice rink. I know we don't want to talk about ice or snow, but I'll tell you, the people that enjoy hockey and ice skating and broomball, they're excited because we're building a new hockey rink on the west side of town. We'll celebrate that very soon. Wanted to talk very briefly on, as you know, we've been challenged in the city to try to change our routes in terms of our public transportation system here in town, and we've been working with a number of community groups to work on that. We're actually going to be giving a presentation to the City Council and to the City of Sioux Falls on December 6th to talk about some updated routes that we're proposing to help improve our public transportation system here in Sioux Falls. So you'll be hearing more. And then I had to end with this. It's kind of interesting. The City of Spearfish actually voted in to make sure that their street team, their snow removal team, does not put snow in their driveways. So that's kind of an interesting thing. I'm not recommending that here, City Council, and I'm going to let Mark test those snow gates for us, but I thought that it was kind of an interesting thing. The City of Spearfish, I don't know how they're going to do it, whether it's through snow gates or maybe they're going to hand and shovel every driveway that they have. But I thought that was really intriguing, and so we'll see what happens there, and we'll certainly be watching how that works. So, again, we're looking forward to today's presentation, and in the spirit of trying to be brief, we'll move on. Thank you, Councilor Jimison.
Okay, thank you. Any questions for the mayor? Councilor Brown.
Just one concern, because today at the Homeless Advisory Board, it was brought up about possible changes in some of the routes. I would encourage us not only to look at the numbers of riders, while that's important, but the purpose for which some of those people are riding those routes. I understand one of the routes being considered to change is Route 12, which handles a lot of people going from downtown out to the behavioral health facility for their mental health appointment. So I think it's very important that we not only look at numbers of riders, but the purpose and intent of those rides as well.
That's outstanding, Councilor Brown. I'll let you folks know there's an open house that's going to be at our downtown terminal. That's going to be from 3 to 6 p.m. on Tuesday, November 16th, as well as we will be presenting the proposed routes to the Public Transit Advisory Board for their approval. That's at 3:45 on Monday, November 22nd. So if you have comments like Councilor Brown just mentioned, please let us know. Let us know what's important to you. Let us know what you don't want changed, and let us know why. I think Councilor Brown brings up a very, very valid point, and this is your opportunity to get involved before those changes are ultimately implemented.
Any other questions, comments? Okay, seeing none, we'll move on to the Audit Committee. The Audit Committee is working on setting our next meeting date. You'll be notified when that happens. We'll look for that later this month. Any questions about that? Okay, next we'll move on to our Fiscal Committee.
We're going to continue our agenda tomorrow at 4 p.m. here in the chambers, so we will pick up where we left off.
Okay, 4 o'clock tomorrow. Any questions for Councilor Brown? Okay, very good. Move on to Land Use Committee. No report. Okay, thank you. Councilor Litz. Public Services Committee, Kenny is gone. Who else could?
We have postponed the meeting that was scheduled for today to give us time to do the things that are on our agenda this afternoon, but another meeting has not been scheduled. We do have the Board of Ethics ordinance on our agenda for the next meeting.
Any questions of Councilor Erpenbach? Okay, seeing none, very good. We'll move on to City Council open discussion. Any items, anybody? Councilor Brown.
Just one other thing. I don't know if Darren is here. Darren was at our Homeless Advisory Board meeting as well today, and I indicated some of what we learned there. But I also wanted to tell you, I've mentioned before that we're seeing increasing number of homeless people this year. We actually had one in attendance today, and you would not have known she was homeless at all by looks or any other way. She had an incredible story to tell about the difficulty she's having finding a home in Sioux Falls right now, and she's living out of her car currently, and I was very concerned about how she's going to survive the winter and the hoops that she has had to jump through to maintain what few benefits she has. It was a pretty amazing story. So I just wanted to let you know we are continuing to work towards some solutions for the short term in terms of a warming center, and those details will be coming shortly. But it was a great reminder for us today how big of a problem this is in our city.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments, questions? Councilor Aguilar.
I'd like to offer my congratulations to Councilor Litz on his election to county government, and to let the listening public know that the City Council will be developing a process for his replacement, which will happen in March. So congratulations, Bob.
Thank you.
Okay, very good. Any other comments, questions? I've got a couple. Saturday, I was able to attend the Air National Guard's dedication the 114th Fighter Wing Block 40 F-16s. These are the new F-16s that have been brought into our Air Guard unit here in Sioux Falls. And just real quick, it's important because in about 2015, the government will start producing the F-20, the F-35, which is the next generation of F-16s. The fact that our Guard unit was able to receive these jets allows them to be a functioning part of that whole process for the next 15 or 20 years, enabling them to receive those new planes. There's other organizations around the country that did not receive those new planes, so they will be either downsized or changed in scope. So there's about 1,000 people who work out there at the Air National Guard, and it's a big deal for our community that they were able to keep these or get these new F-16s. The food was great. The band was good. My brother is a pilot, a fighter pilot out at the Guard. He flies one of these new planes. My dad used to fly an old F-100, and my son is a crew chief. So he works on these new planes. So it's the Air Guard's in our family, but it was a great event. I wanted to share that with you guys. A couple other items. Jim, Councilor Intiman, and myself have been working on a couple items. First item for myself is the RV ordinance. And I know you've been waiting for this. I'll be pushing this forward, I suppose is the right way to say it, but I wanted to kind of share it with you now that what I'll be looking for is about a 48-hour window for somebody with an RV to park that in their driveway in front of the sidewalk, so they're not blocking the sidewalk, and if it's over 22 feet, they cannot park it on the street. And the idea is 48 hours for customary loading, unloading, and cleaning. I know some of you are interested in that timeline, but the idea is to try to find some compromise with the public and private citizens who have an RV that they can enjoy them and use them. I don't know if 48 hours is a sensitive timeline for you. That's what I'm trying to discern from looking at you at this point. But that's what I intend to bring forward. If I could get any input on that, please let me know before we exercise all the other facets involved in bringing it forward. But that's my intentions. The other is the signing, the definition of a commercial vehicle. Right now, if you've got a certain number of square feet of signage on your vehicle, it's defined as a commercial vehicle. Right now, one of our goals is, with the help of Councilor Intiman, is to just remove that language. So the number of square feet that is on a vehicle will not define and make it a commercial vehicle. There are other changes that you do to a commercial vehicle, like adding special equipment that changes it from a personal use vehicle to a commercial vehicle. Those will all stay in place. This is all about signage. And again, it's about a compromise. It's finding a way for business people to do business in our city, but not create an overburden on our neighborhoods of something that the neighbors don't appreciate. But we got to find a compromise somewhere, it sounds like. So again, I'm looking for facial expressions and objections, but that's what should be coming forward in that kind of language, unless we hear otherwise. I think that's really it. Any other comments, questions? All right, very good. We'll move into our presentations. And first, we're going to start off with who controls the railroad. I got stuck in one today on Minnesota coming here, but we had a constituent ask some questions, some very good questions, and I think a lot of us have had interest in knowing those answers. And with us today, we have John Malloy, who's going to be the president of the Ellis and Eastern Railroad. John, come on up, and maybe sounds like you've got a presentation for us, so welcome.
Thanks, Councilor Jameson. Good afternoon. Good afternoon, Mayor Huther. Is that better? Good afternoon, councilors. Yes, I'm here to not only talk about who controls the railroads in Sioux Falls, but kind of give you a little railroading 101. And This is a really cool map. Can you guys see that on your monitors? Is that what? Okay, good. It is entitled A Bird's Eye View of Sioux Falls in 1881. And you can see one of the most prominent features in the map is the railroads. And at this time, I think there were two railroads coming into Sioux Falls. One of them was called the Worthington and Sioux Falls Railroad, and that is actually the predecessor of our railroad. And the other one was the Wilmer and Sioux Falls Railroad, and that ran from Wilmer to Sioux Falls. And that is currently the BNSF. But you can see how small Sioux Falls actually was back in 1881 and where the railroads ran. If you see the railroad that curves around, so that picture actually looks from the east to the west. And if you see the railroad that curves around to the south edge of town, that's the what is now the Ellison Eastern. And it's crossing 14th Street there and is out in the middle of the country. And then you can see downtown where the rail yards are currently located. And you can see Sweeney Island over there, and the 8th Street Viaduct and the 10th Street Bridge. And I think there might be 3 railroads there, and the other one is, I think, the Illinois Central, or the Rock Island. But anyway, in 1878, August 1st, 1878, the first railroad called Sioux Falls and Worthington came into town amid much fanfare, and that is actually the predecessor of our railroad. Shortly after, the Wilmer and Sioux Falls came to town. Those have all fallen by the wayside now, absorbed by bigger railroads, and bigger railroads absorb bigger railroads. Some of the other ones that used to be in Sioux Falls are the Great Northern, the Chicago, Milwaukee, St. Paul, and Omaha, the Chicago Northwestern, the Rock Island, and the Illinois Central. There are only 3 current railroads in Sioux Falls. The BNSF, they are by far the biggest railroad that goes through Sioux Falls. That's called a Class 1 railroad in railroad terminology. The D&I, which stands for Dakota and Iowa, and the E&E are Class 3 railroads. 3 classes of railroads. Class 1s are the big transcontinental railroads, Burlington Northern, Santa Fe, Union Pacific, CSX, Norfolk Southern. And Class 2 railroads are DM&E size railroads. Sioux Line is a Class 2 railroad. And then there are hundreds of smaller short line railroads in South Dakota. Well, in the United States, in South Dakota, I think there are a half a dozen short line railroads. And in 1980, the Congress passed the Staggers Act, which deregulated railroads. Prior to 1980, the railroads were controlled by the Interstate Commerce Commission, and they had basically total control over the rates they could set, whether they could abandon the track or not. And we all know that in 1980, the Milwaukee Road went bankrupt, forcing the state of South Dakota to buy the bulk of their tracks that were in the state just to provide rail service for our agricultural products. Over the course of the next 20 years, railroads divested themselves of much of their money-losing tracks, and because of the lower cost structure, short line railroads were able to buy those railroads, rejuvenate them, and provide a necessary and profitable service. My railroad, Ellison Eastern, we're a wholly owned subsidiary of Sweetman Construction Company, and we were founded in 1988 when the Chicago Northwestern abandoned its track from Worthington to Ellis. And we were forced to buy the track because without it, our quarry out by the fairgrounds wouldn't have had rail service, and that's a vital component to having a cost-competitive quarry, because rail transportation is much cheaper than truck transportation. We move about 6,000 cars a year. 4,000 of it is for Sweetman products, and 2,000 is for third-party customers that are located on our line. Our biggest customer outside of Sweetman by far is GCC Cement Terminal that is on Marion Road and 9th Street. and they get in about 2,000 cars a year. Just so you get an idea, 6,000 train car loads would require 25,000 trucks to haul that much freight. So you'd have 25,000 loaded trucks going through town and 25,000 empty trucks going back. The other two railroads in town, BNSF, primarily the trains you see of theirs are the big long shuttle trains. They're up to 125 or 30 cars, and they move from Madison, they come down to Sioux Falls, and then go out to Garrettson. And they also bring shuttle trains in from Marion and Parker and the line going clear out to Mitchell. They also serve industries in Sioux Falls that aren't on our track, primarily in the Airport Industrial Park and up by the Industrial Park near Citibank. That's all served by BNSF switch crews. The D&I Railroad is a subsidiary of LG Everest, and they haul rock from their quarry, from the Everest quarry in Del Rapids, just pass through Sioux Falls and haul it to Sioux City where they have a distribution terminal there. And it's not exact, but approximately 10 trains a day move through Sioux Falls. Train schedules. Everybody gets upset when they have to wait for a train at a crossing. But that is because at their core, railroads are service-oriented industries. They're servicing their customers. Their customers want cars delivered at a certain time. The railroads are obligated to do that. They wouldn't be in business very long if they didn't. So you can imagine what kind of railroad would, there wouldn't be any successful railroads if they only ran trains between 10 and 11 and 2 and 3. And besides the Burlington Northern, Santa Fe Railroad schedules their trains in Fort Worth. And it's not just through Sioux Falls. They schedule a train from its beginning to end. And so a train traveling through Sioux Falls has probably 2 crews just in South Dakota, and 1 crew can only go 12 hours. They have to stop and get the new crew on, and then that crew takes it perhaps to Wilmer or Sioux City. So it's just so impractical to try and schedule trains to avoid rush hours. It's just impossible. And besides, the Federal Railroad Administration and the Surface Transportation Board regulate railroads in the United States. The FRA sets speed limits and governs grade crossings, track conditions, and operating practices. Surface Transportation Board primarily, well, it is the successor to the Interstate Commerce Commission. They also look at rate reasonableness, and if a railroad wants to add track or abandon track, they still have to go through the Surface Transportation Board. All federal regulations preempt state and local regulations. So if the Sioux Falls City Council would pass an ordinance that said you can't run a train over 5 miles an hour in the city limits of Sioux Falls, that would be preempted by Federal Railroad Administration regulations that say that the speed of the train is governed by by the condition of the track. Sioux Falls does have one city ordinance covering railroads, and that limits railroads to blocking a crossing for more than 5 minutes by a stationary train. That does not govern how long it takes a moving train to pass a crossing. So if you're stuck behind a 100-car train, well, for one thing, that's not the Ellison Eastern's train. But even though it might take 5 minutes at the crossing, that does not fall under the Sioux Falls ordinance. So if you get right down to it, the bottom line is railroads are the ones that control their schedules. Future railroads, All the railroads in town are waiting for the rail yard relocation to take place. But one thing I wanted to make clear is that will reduce train traffic through the downtown area, but it won't eliminate it. There will still be trains traveling through the downtown area. If the rail yard gets relocated to the east edge of Sioux Falls, there won't be any switching movements, no back and forth across the crossing. The two vital components, I think, from the railroad's point of view, are that the first component is moving the switch yard to the east side of town. The second one is constructing a connecting track from the Madison line, from Madison, South Dakota. The track currently comes down by Falls Park, crosses over the river, but the track is not configured to enable you to make a left turn and go out on the track going to Garrettson. You have to come down through downtown, cut your engines off, so you're blocking Cliff Avenue, 8th Street, 6th Street, cut your engine off, bring the engines clear around to the other end, then back up onto a different track, and then pull out through Garrettson, to Garrettson. So that's inefficient from the railroad's point of view, and of course it's completely tying up half the town with traffic. As Sioux Falls grows, rail traffic will increase because it is so much more efficient than trucking. 2 workers, an engineer and a conductor, can do the work of 500 truck drivers. And railroads can haul 400 tons of freight 1 mile with 1 gallon of fuel, whereas a truck can haul 125 tons of freight 1 mile with 1 gallon of fuel. And Warren Buffett is a pretty shrewd businessman, and he just bought Burlington Northern Santa Fe lock, stock, and barrel. And I don't think he would have done that if he thought that the railroads were a dying industry. So we're going to be here for a while. That's really all my presentation, but I'd sure like to answer some questions.
Any questions for the railroad president, Mr. Malloy?
Yes.
Councilor Entman.
So basically what you're saying is that your schedule or your client's schedules really determine how we travel, how the rail travels.
That's exactly
what
right.
you're saying.
Yeah. If our customers want cars delivered at a certain time, that's when we deliver them.
So you're not purposely blocking the streets?
We're not
and
purposely
intersections?
blocking the streets, no.
Okay.
You know, probably the logical thing to do is to build an overpass for each crossing if you never want to be stopped by a train. But for instance, we run 7 miles of track in town here, and we have over 30 grade crossings. And 12 or 14 of them have signals. So the other ones are crossbucks only. And do you all know what a crossbuck is equivalent to? In a street sign? A yield sign. When you come up to a crossbuck, you have to look both ways, make sure no train is coming. If it's safe to proceed, you can do so. If not, you have to stop and yield right away to the train. If you see a flashing red light, that is the same as a stop sign. You have to stop, determine if it's safe to proceed, and if it is, you can proceed. If it's not, then you have to wait for the train.
Councilor Aguilar.
John, you said that the federal government pretty much regulates the trains. Who enforces those regulations?
The FRA, Federal Railroad Administration, we have inspections by different disciplines within the FRA more than 12 times a year.
So they come in and count the number of cars that are, like spot checks or?
Well, what they're looking for is safety.
Okay.
Primarily. The condition of your track, is your track safe to run for the speeds that you're running on it? Is your equipment safe? Are the brakes able to stop the cars? And are your employees operating safely?
Thank you.
Any other questions for John? John, I have one question on the railroad relocation project that's coming. Does your railroad have any interest in that property that would be vacated?
Yes, we do. We used to own the yards downtown from underneath the 10th Street Viaduct out to almost to I-229 near Cleveland Avenue. And we sold the downtown yards to the Burlington Northern in 1989, shortly after we bought the railroad. But as part of that sale, we retained the right of first refusal for those for that land. That if the BN was going to sell that land to anybody else, they would first have to offer it to us under the same terms.
So you're a big player in this railroad relocation,
No, we're just a little guy.
but I think you hold one of the keys.
Well,
Next week, I believe it is next week, November 15th, we're getting an update, right? Would you be available for that meeting?
Sure.
To be around?
I think I'm available.
That'd be great to have you included. There's a whole lot of other people that I've been talking to lately and recently on that subject, and we're going to try to get just as many people as we can who have a piece of that puzzle, and maybe we can unlock this thing and get it done. But I'd really appreciate it if you could be there.
You bet.
Great.
Yes.
Any other questions? Any other? All right, well, John, I think our constituent who is interested in some of these questions is here. Maybe you, if you feel so inclined to introduce yourself to John, I think you guys could talk later.
Pardon me? I'm Mr. Stanga.
You guys could maybe talk later. I guess he's the one who had brought up some of these questions, and thank you for all your information.
You're welcome.
And we'll not try to run into any railroads, trains. Thank you.
No, because it's dangerous.
Yes, the train wins. Okay, very good. We'll move on to our next presentation on the Event Center update with Mayor Mike Huther. Welcome, Mayor.
Well, a hearty good afternoon to everyone, and thanks so much for tuning in, and thanks so much for joining us today. As we promised, we wanted to at least provide at least a monthly update to the people of Sioux Falls, and yes, to the City Council on the issues, the opportunities, what has occurred over the last 30 days with this critical project called Event Center for Sioux Falls. Today, I'll be giving a brief presentation. Mark Cotter will be giving a brief presentation, so will Mike Cooper as well, and we'll try to get through it as timely as we can, but we also want to do it with a spirit of being as thorough as we possibly can as well. Today is November 8th. We'll do this again here in a month, and today I'm going to start off with Mark Cotter, who is the Director of Public Works here in the City of Sioux Falls.
Thank you, Mayor. Good afternoon, City Council members. Today I will cover two items of the Event Center, which is the update on the first two RFPs that will go out to start the project. The first one's out on the street, the Architect and Engineering RFP. And the three things we'll talk about today is the schedule, where we're at from the beginning through the selection process. Just give you a sense of some of the questions that have been asked to date. And I did bring about 15 copies, and they're over on the table if anyone's interested. They're also on the website, and they're uploaded daily. The cutoff for the questions was last Friday, so now the proposing teams will finalize their proposals and get those submitted. And then also we have established who the proposal evaluation team is, and it is a makeup of people that are in City Hall as well as outside City Hall. Okay, just a recap on the schedule. You've seen this schedule before. I've put the arrow on where we're at today. The RFP was loaded to the website. We've had a significant amount of interest. One of the keys with the Architect and Engineering RFP is that they have to have a local architect on their teams as well as a local engineer. They can certainly expand that, but the key is with any team they have to make sure that if there's a national architect orchestrating the team, they have to have a local architect and a local engineer. As I said, the question cutoff was last Friday. We've received about 11 questions to date asking us to clarify respective points of the RFP. The proposals are due this Friday, and we do expect that we're going to receive somewhere between 6 and 10 proposals. Should be very detailed. There's many qualified teams that have been talking to us over time, and so we're excited to see the results of this first RFP. The goal is then to go through them, shortlist the most qualified teams, interview with the anticipation of having a design agreement in hand and starting work the first part of January. Okay, just to highlight on a couple of the questions, and some of them do get fairly detailed and more very specific to the proposing teams. But just to highlight a few, again, we received 11, and one of the questions was local professional participation. Is it limited to just architects and engineers? We said no. We certainly said no. There's a lot of other professionals that will be included in this type of a project, from electrical, structural, mechanical, to public outreach, PR firms, and so we tried to clarify that. Then the next question came is, will additional credit be given if they exceed the goals that are established in the RFP? We did ask for a minimum participation locally of 15% with a goal of getting to 25% of the team's level of effort would be done local, and so that certainly will be weighed if they beat the goal. There was a question, is there a specific downtown location? Our response was no. We're asking the professionals to come into town, evaluate the previous studies, look across the downtown, and then select or recommend the most suitable and feasible location to be included in the comparative analysis. Who's on the evaluation team? I have a slide that speaks to that. The next one is the two local management firms that specialize in managing these types of facilities. We have two in town today, which is SMG and Global Spectrum. And the more we started to talk about these teams as they formed, that many of these proposing teams were signing exclusivity agreements with all their members of their teams. It was, one of the keys is that there's not very many consultants that are in the business that these two companies are, and there's very limited. In fact, there's probably 3 to 4 nationally that do the bulk of the work. And with that concern, the fact that we already have them under contract, they also agreed to be engaged in the process at no cost to the city. They also did say if there is an expert that they need to bring in, if we would just pay for the travel expense, that's the only thing that they would want to make whole. So we did remove that requirement from the RFP that a management firm has to be on their team. In the questions, we listed off the whole list of types of events that you might see here, and then also what's the extent of the city's involvement with the traffic and parking analysis. And essentially we've stated that in 2004 there was a traffic and parking analysis done. Much has changed since then, and so we're updating both of those, and we'll continue to work through with the selected team side by side to make sure that both those, the traffic and the parking analysis, is accurate for both sites. Again, there is a list of the questions over there on your way out if you'd like to take a copy. Okay, now the RFP evaluation team. One of the things we tried to look at is internally and externally, who are some people in the community that have recently built large facilities, that have built large event facilities. And so we started to generate some ideas and have this as our recommended evaluation team. The first 5 are internal, but I'll certainly state them. Mike Cooper, Director of Planning and Building Services. Darren Smith, Director of Community Development and Public Parking. Don Kearney, Director of Parks and Recreation. Tom Huber, the Acting Director of Finance. Myself, Director of Public Works. Mark Lee, the Executive Dean of the University Center. They've not only built 2 key facilities, they have one underway. They've also have a significant amount of experience with construction management at risk, which is on my next slide. Willie Sanchez, the Athletic Director for the University of Sioux Falls, building off their most recent large sports project. Mike Sullivan, the Executive Director for the Sioux Falls Sports Authority. Frank Hughes, the Director of Facilities for Augustana College. and Jeff Kreider, the Director of Operational Services for the Sioux Falls School District. You know, one of the things when we reached out to all 5 of the external people, they've certainly stated that they were honored to be a part of it, but we do think that they bring just a wealth of information of recent large-scale event-type projects that will really round off our evaluation team. All right, my second topic tonight is the next RFP that we're excited to get out and on the street. There's been a significant amount of interest local and nationally as well for this part of the process, which is to select the contractor. And again, the benefit to having a construction manager at risk involved early on in the process is you hire the architect and you hire the contractor, and through the entire process, the contractor is essentially doing value engineering with the architect on sourcing all kinds of things from materials to delivery methods to supplies to schedules to really get to a point where they will be able to, their point of the risk is at some point we'll ask them for a guaranteed maximum price for this project, and that's why they call it a construction manager at risk. Next, and per state law and city ordinance, we do have to bring forward for your consideration a resolution to authorize this delivery method, which is the CM at risk. That will come next Monday, a week from tonight. That following Friday, with your support, we will run the RFP out on the website, and proposing teams will start to look at the details that needs to be included. The proposals will then be due December 10th, and then our anticipated notice to proceed will be late January. So the goal is that we have the architect and the constructor hired in January, have a joint kickoff meeting, and really start to nail down the details of this project. With that, I will turn the mic over to Mike Cooper for his slides. Mike.
Thank you, Mark. Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Mike Cooper, Planning and Building Services, and I'm recovering a little bit from a cold, so I'm going to have a little froggy throat today. But Mayor Heather has asked me to address a very important component of this process tonight, which is the economic and development impact analysis. And I'm going to attempt to answer 3 questions today. First of all, are we going to do one? Second of all, what will it include? And third, when will it be done? So if it's not clear by the time I'm done of the answer to those 3 questions, then I will have failed in my task. But what I would like to present today is a proposed scope of services or scope of work. And this is based on, to a large extent, the work that we've done with the previous 2 task forces. In both cases, we worked with a consulting firm to develop an economic analysis of the proposal for the event center. And I think the type of work that we're proposing to do with this is pretty well known around the country. But again, I would like to go through it with the council because it does include one additional component that we have not done before. So what we're proposing to do is that the city will conduct an economic and development impact analysis. So the answer to the first question is yes. And this analysis will be in regard to potential locations of our new event center. And we're looking at a proposal for 2 parts. The first part would be to address the overall potential economic impact, including new spending, tax revenues, at the various facility locations being considered. In other words, what is the overall economic impact of having a new event center? And as I've said before, we do this each year for the pavilion, we do it for the convention center, for the arena, and we base that on the number of events, the type of events, whether people are staying overnight, and we use a multiplier to kind of project out not only direct spending but also indirect spending. The second component of this scope of work is something that is based on recent discussions among the community citizens, and that is looking at the potential for the new event center project to spur added development in the surrounding vicinity. So this is a little more focused in on, once we've determined the locations of where the event center will work, not only looking at the overall community economic impact, but more specifically on the surrounding economic development impact. So in order to prepare these two types of analysis, we envision completing the following tasks as part of our process. So the first task is the overall economic and fiscal impact analysis. And again, this is very similar to the two previous task forces that we did. And you can go back and look at that information because it will be available online. Within this particular task, we would ask that the consultant develop updated projections as to the event potential for the proposed event center, with the focus on the potential differences should the project be developed at differing sites. So in other words, again, we have to go back and look at the arena site, a downtown site. Once we know that we have two sites that we think will work, then we can look at the type of events, the schedule of events, the type of amenities that will draw people there, and that can be used to determine the economic analysis. We hope to use data from our previous studies because there is a lot of good background information that has been done in the past, along with a current evaluation of our market conditions, so that we can develop the type of events and estimates of the attendance within those events. As part of that task, we would also look at analyzing the spending levels among both residents and non-residents that would be attending the event center. And those can get pretty detailed, as we've looked in the past, of different demographics. We can get them broken down by the different types of events that would be conducted in the facility. So these estimates would be used to calculate the total incremental spending in Sioux Falls that would be generated as a result of the new facility, again, at the various locations, and would be based on appropriate spending estimates using industry data that the consultants would typically have, and would be adjusted in some cases to our local situation. So there's different formulas that are available that the consultants have used in the past to develop these spending estimates. And so the resulting information would be segmented by industry and applied to the economic impact multipliers. Some of this terminology I have taken from, again, the other studies that have been done in the past, and also discussions with the industry representatives. So the multipliers, which we specific to Sioux Falls area, would be provided by the leading input and output multiplier models. The input is the direct spending for people that attend events at the facility. The output would be the combination of indirect spending as well as direct spending. So in other words, again, much like the convention center when they calculate the economic impact of say, Jazz Fest, or a convention, I guess is a better example. We know what the direct spending is of people that attend the facility, but there's also indirect spending, or the multiplier, that we can calculate. So as part of this task, we can estimate the total economic output, the different kinds of earnings to the city from different revenue streams, employment that would be generated as a result of the new event center. It can be pretty detailed analysis that we've seen from past reports. And so the consultant would be asked to quantify all of this information for each of the two identified sites for the proposed event center. And again, the measures that we would be asked to have as part of this task would include the total output, which is both the direct and indirect spending, the earnings from sales tax, room tax, other types of revenue, employment, and again, the various other types of revenues. So that's a quick overview of what I see, or what we would see happening as part of that first task. Very similar to what we've done in the past with the two previous task forces. The second task, which is something different, something new that we're being asked to consider for this particular process, is to do an analysis of current and future real estate conditions. We know that businesses such as restaurants, retail shops, entertainment facilities, other commercial development will often benefit from the existence of a new facility like an event center. And we want to be able to try to quantify that. So the purpose of this task will be to assess the potential for the new event center in terms of generating additional future development, commercial development, in the areas surrounding the potential sites. And again, I'm going to come back to, in order to do this, we have to be able to have a site-specific area identified. Otherwise, we're really making more of a guess, an estimate, rather than specific analytical data that we can tie down to the specific sites. So, in order to prepare this analysis, the consultant would work, we would envision, with a local real estate consultant to look at an analysis of current and future real estate conditions associated with each of the proposed sites. In other words, let's find somebody locally that can tell us what the market is going to be in the future, depending on where the event center is located. The market for retail, whether it's restaurants, shopping, whatever it might be. What's going to be the development impact of having this facility? And so we would look at both the current arena site and a downtown site. As part of this analysis, the consultant will evaluate how each of the two sites either currently addresses or could potentially address several different important factors over a 5-year period. And 5 years is an arbitrary timeline. We could ask for a longer timeline. It's just, again, whatever we would like to choose in terms of the degree of analysis. Obviously, the farther out that you're making assumptions, probably the less accuracy you'll have. But that's something that's negotiable. The factors that we would be looking at with the consultant, things like proximity to existing entertainment, restaurant, and related amenities, the potential for demand conditions associated with these particular uses, potential development that may take place without the existence of the new event center, because obviously wherever we don't build an event center, we don't believe that economic development is going to stop. And so we want to look at what will happen with or without the new event center. And then the ability of the event center to stimulate additional entertainment, industry development, and other amenities within the immediate surrounding area. And again, I want to emphasize that we think it's important to start out with our AE team, for them to go through their site review analysis and determine the locations where the event center can be placed that will meet all the criteria for the size, parking, access, those kind of things. You have to go through that process first before you can really determine with a level of accuracy what the economic analysis is going to be. And we discovered that with the two previous task forces, that was one of the last things that we did, was the economic analysis. This type of analysis will provide for a general sense as to the potential impacts of the event center on the ability to stimulate additional development within the surrounding area. So again, this is the task that will zero in more specifically on development as a result of the event center. The first task would be more of a community-wide economic analysis. So I've answered the first question, yes. I've tried to answer the second question as far as what this analysis would include, and I know since you're seeing this for the first time today, that's a lot of information. And again, this is a proposal in terms of what we think a scope of services might include. It's certainly not the final version. We would be looking for more input, more discussion as far as tying down the specifics of this particular process. So the third question is, when would we do this? We believe that once we've hired a consulting firm to do this analysis, that it would probably take somewhere between 8 and 10 weeks. That's not an exact schedule, but it's just something that, again, based on discussions and based on experience with other processes. And that would be to do both tasks 1 and task 2. Tasks 1 and 2. And then the last thing is based on discussions, again, of looking at how we've done this before with the task forces and working with the firms that would do this kind of work. We are very adamant that we believe the first step has to be to work with the AE team, as Mark Cotter has outlined again today, and do the comparative analysis to determine where the locations are going to be. Because if we don't have a location pinned down at the arena downtown, again, I'll say that the economic analysis is not going to be as accurate as it should be or as you think it needs to be. We have to determine that we have a site that can meet all the physical requirements first. Then, from that, we can do the side-by-side economic analysis. And I know that debate has been going on the past few weeks, but it just makes sense to determine where something can be located first before you determine what the impacts of that location are going to be. So, as Mayor Huther has tasked me to answer these 3 questions, I will turn it back to the mayor.
Thanks, Mike. What Mike talked about is really no different than what we've been talking about. It's more detailed information, but really the same answers that we've been providing. I hope that you believe that he answered question 1, question 2, and question 3. We've tried it in the past. We'll have Mike do it, and I think he did an excellent job. There were questions that were asked over the last months as we've been talking about this great topic, and that is, once again, and some of the questions were even in this body, are the Sioux Falls citizens ready? And yes, once again, same slide, same answer, the citizens of Sioux Falls are ready. There was a poll. In fact, even amongst this body, there were folks who said, you know what, how can you proceed without knowing whether the people are ready? We talked about a variety of different things in terms of what happened with the last task force, what happened during my campaign as I was going door to door, business to business. We talked about polling results that were done even prior to me being elected. We talked about what Mayor Munson and his team were able to find out. We've talked about what I found out as I've been mayor, and now, of course, there was a poll that all of you are aware of that was completed by Mason Dixon, polling and research team that was done by Kellerland and the Argus Leader. And let's just talk about what were the results of the question that they asked. Would you support or oppose having the City of Sioux Falls build a new event center to replace the arena? Really, really basic question, pretty simple to understand. And as all of you know, and maybe some of the people in Sioux Falls don't know, but there was a strong level of support. 57% of our city is ready to move forward. There are a third that would oppose it right now. for a variety of reasons, and all of them are legitimate. And then there's 10% that haven't made up their mind yet. When you look at those that approve it, it's, as I had mentioned before, regardless of where you live, regardless of your sex, whether you're a male or a female, regardless of your political persuasion, whether you're a Democrat, a Republican, or an independent, and yes, regardless of your age, the majority of people in Sioux Falls are ready to move this critical project forward. They also asked in that poll that was completed by the Argus Leader and Kell Land, where would you prefer to see it built? Would you prefer to see it built at the current arena site, downtown, or somewhere else? 57% felt that the current site was the best location for this critical investment for our city. 15% felt downtown. 24% said elsewhere. This was no surprise to me, and I don't think it was a surprise to most people in our city. It just reiterates, again, which was determined by Mayor Munson. It was what was determined by the last task force, and again, it was determined again by this poll that, again, right now the current site is definitely the preferred site, but doesn't mean that we're not going to evaluate or compare both sites. We've been saying this for months that we would, and we still are. Just because 60% feel that the current site is the best location and only 15% feel that it's not, we're still going to do the comparative analysis of both sites. Okay? It's the right thing to do, and we will, in fact, do it, as Mike Cooper reiterated a couple times in his presentation. Was this poll fair? I mean, was it legitimate? Well, let's just look at to who they polled and how they did it. Again, these are experts that do this for a living. It was very, very comparable to the makeup of our city. If you look at the party registration, I think that all of you will agree it's pretty close to what we have here in Sioux Falls and South Dakota. If you look at the age that they polled, again, these are voters, these are registered voters. So again, you look at that, it looks very, very comparable. And then, of course, the gender wasn't exactly 50-50, but it's 48-52 male and female. Again, the makeup of the respondents were across the board, and it showed that regardless of the demographic, the people of Sioux Falls are ready to move this project forward. You know, as difficult as this process is for those of us that are in the heat of the battle, and we're not done. This is going to continue on for easily at least a year, if not longer. You know, we are continuing to listen. We do actually value what we're learning on this journey, and we're going to continue to teach all of you in terms of what we're learning as well. And then when we learn something, we are going to strive to educate all of you on what it is that we're learning, the good, the bads, and indeed potentially the uglies on the process. One of the things that we've learned is that there is definitely some confusion. People use things like recreation center. They use things like convention center. They use words like event center. And yes, we've even heard the word entertainment center used in these discussions. And it's confusing. My goal tonight is to try to help educate all of you what is the distinct differences between these three. Because I think it's important that we, as we move forward, ultimately we talk about event center. First, a recreation center. What is a recreation center? It accommodates a wide range of individual and group recreational sports and fitness activities. These normally include weight training facilities, aerobic fitness rooms, racket courts, dance, exercise, free play activity rooms, climbing walls, running tracks, and so much more. The more expansive facilities include batting cages, swimming, tennis, and basketball courts, etc. That's a recreation center that is very, very far from an event center, and it's very, very far from a convention center. Sioux Falls, there has been a vote on a new recreation center. There has. But that was a recreation center, not an event center. Convention center. It's a large building designed to hold conventions where individuals, groups gather to promote and share common interests. Typically, they offer sufficient floor space, what we call flat floor space, to accommodate several thousand attendees. They typically have at least one auditorium and may contain lecture halls, meeting rooms, and conference rooms for smaller events, and yes, major trade shows as well. You know, during my campaign, I talked a lot about convention centers. You heard me talk about it in my debates. You heard me talking about it in speeches. Yes, the people of downtown Sioux Falls heard me talk a lot about convention centers. Convention centers. In fact, I used a story time and time again about over the years how my wife Cindy and I would go to conferences or conventions across this great country. I talked about how while I was attending the conference, Cindy would go out shopping, would go to lunch, and then would come back and pick me up after the conference was done. Then what we would do is we'd go out, yes, we'd have a beer, we'd have a steak, maybe we'd even do a bit more shopping, and then we'd come back. Yes, downtown Sioux Falls, I talked about convention centers a lot, and how I felt that conference rooms ultimately are better if they're downtown. Terry L. Schmidt of the Convention and Visitors Bureau, in her office, she heard me talk time and time again about how convention conference rooms, they are probably better downtown. I did say that. I didn't say event centers, folks. I said conference rooms. And I'm saying it again today. We can put more conference rooms, more flat floor space in downtown Sioux Falls, and folks, we're already working on it, and we can make that happen. What we're talking about, people, is an event center. An event center. It's not a recreation center, and it's not a convention center. This is an event center that we're talking about spending $100 million on. What is it? It's a multi-purpose arena located in cities and on college campuses that host events for basketball, hockey, rodeos, concerts, graduation ceremonies, and other large special events. These are large facilities with expansive lobbies, numerous luxury suites, a large quantity of individual and general seating, including bleachers, and a bevy of food and concession stands. I'm going to reiterate, there has never been a vote on a new event center for Sioux Falls since the arena was built. I'm going to repeat that. Sioux Falls, we have not voted on a new event center since the Sioux Falls arena was built. We've not. There's confusion on that, and we want to clear that up today. There's a lot that's going to happen at this new event center if we get it built, just like Omaha did. Concerts, trade shows, conventions, rodeos, basketball, hockey, motocross, arena football, wrestling, church services, graduation ceremonies, forums, debates, family shows, figure skating, and so much more. You can't do these things in a convention room. You can't do these things in a recreation center. You can only do these things in an event center. I'm going to ask the City Council. I'm going to ask the media. And I'm going to ask the people of Sioux Falls, help me educate the people of Sioux Falls what an event center is, how they are different from a convention center, and how they are different from a recreation center. I ask you, help me, because we need to do that. That's part of our job, City Council. Instead of muddying up the waters, we need to clear the waters. And you can help me by talking about event center and the differences between the two. We're not done. There's a lot of learning to do. There's a lot of listening to do. And today, as you know, we've completed the Event Center update. Last week, we talked about parking in downtown Sioux Falls. Next week, we're going to talk about railroad relocation. Then, on December 6th, we're going to talk about development efforts in downtown Sioux Falls. Then, a month later from today, we're going to talk again about the Event Center. I think, as you can see, City Council, we're not trying to hold back on anything. You ask us to talk about something, we're talking about it. You're asking us questions, we're trying to answer them. We are trying to be open, we're trying to be transparent, we're trying to be available, and we're trying to let the people of Sioux Falls know. Give us a tough topic. Come up with an excuse. Come up with anything like that. We're tackling it. We are. But we're not afraid of any issue. This is, again, it's not my decision, it's not your decision, it's the people of Sioux Falls' decision. We might as well let them know what to expect. What are the issues, what are the opportunities, and what are the obstacles? That's why we're going to continue these presentations with your permission. You know, again, this is a difficult process. A lot of topics to cover. We've seen this before. Funding, location, size, traffic, economic impact, who's going to use it, what are the operational expenses, where are we going to park, and when are we going to do it? It's a process. We're working through it. It's going well. We thank you for the opportunity. The future is good. We'll just keep battling it. And this is one of our goals, is to actually build an event center for all of us to enjoy. I want to thank you for our time, or for your time. Our next update, again, will be Monday, December 13th. And we truly look forward to not only that meeting, but also for many meetings to come. We do want to open it up for any questions. Mike Cooper, Mark Cotter, and myself are certainly available. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. Any questions for the Mayor? Councilor Aguilar.
Do we have an estimated cost for the economic and development study, and will that cost come out of the $500,000 that was allocated?
Mike, you want to answer that? I can answer it too, but Mike, go ahead.
We'll give the same answer.
Okay. Well, I'll tell you what. Why don't I answer it? Okay. I'll answer it, and we would project it probably anywhere from $30,000 to $50,000 for that to occur. And again, as I have mentioned on numerous occasions, I know I mentioned it last month, I'll mention it again, we believe we have adequate funding. You folks were kind enough to allocate $500,000 to do this work. We believe we're okay right now. And if we need more, and I've said this time and time again, and I'm going to say to you, if we need more, I'm going to come back to the City Council and you folks can approve or disprove it. But right now, we feel very confident that you've done a good job allocating us some money so that we can move this project forward in a thorough, fair, balanced, and yes, prudent fashion. How's that, Mike? Okay.
Yes, save Mike Cooper's voice. So anytime. Any other questions? Councilor Brown.
First of all, can you help me understand, Mayor, what role a public relations firm plays in the RFP, what they would do in that?
Mark, I'm going to let you do that.
Councilor, just like on most projects, whether we do a street project or something of that nature, sometimes firms in-house have the capabilities to really orchestrate very good public meetings, get the right message out. Some of them just don't. Some of them are very strong on the technical side, and they'll actually bring in a sub-consultant. It could be the same thing just like in a different venue, but on A Street, where the civil engineers are very good at laying out the streets, but they don't know how to pick the plants, and so then they'll bring in a firm like Confluence to do the landscape design. So it's just a sense of if they feel like their team needs to be stronger, if they don't have that capabilities in-house, we certainly want these to be very good public meetings.
Would they be used in any way to mount the campaign in terms of before the vote?
Certainly not. This is, as we go through any process, we need to make sure that when there's key stages in the process that are met, then we want to go to the public and show them what we've learned and also garner input, and that's that piece.
Okay. And while you're there, as long as you're there, can you clarify how The downtown comparative site will be chosen. The arena site's pretty cut and dried on where it would go, but the downtown's been pretty open in terms of what exact venue it would be.
And Councilor Brown, I don't even know if the arena site is as cut and dried as maybe we can imagine. I don't know if that's indeed correct. So I maybe we should clarify that. I mean, I know that when I first started this vision thing, we showed it, but that may not be where it ends up. Again, I don't know where it's going to go, and that's what we'll allow these people who are the experts to ultimately determine that for us. And then as for the downtown site, Mark, maybe I should let you speak to that. But again, I think Mike Cooper was pretty clear. They're going to take the specs. For example, how much land mass are you going to need for the proposed 12,000 seat event center? What's the land mass? So what's that footprint? And then, of course, we're going to need some parking, whether you have surface parking or whether you build parking ramps. What is the land mass for that, or the footprint that's going to be required? And then they'll probably do their best to find the right location for not only the arena convention site, but also for downtown. Mike or Mark, does that sound reasonable? Mike, come on up.
Again, I apologize for my voice, but it's very typical for an AE team to have a site selection matrix that they use, and it'll be physical issues as well as utilities, soil conditions. It gets into a lot of detail, but in general, that's going to help us develop a location that we think will meet the criteria, and then once we have that, we can work on the specifics of not only the seating, but the amenities within the facility. And then from there, you can develop the type of events that we'll have. And so all that will be part of the AE process that we'll go through.
There's been talk about the Sharapa place, and I know that was talk at one time. Maybe that is the location that these experts will pick. But then, of course, we've also talked now about some other areas, whether it be down by the falls, or I've heard people talk about the Sunshine supermarket area. Again, I don't know ultimately where it would be in terms of what they would recommend. But again, I think that gives you an understanding of why that's so important to figure out. Because the Sunshine location is a much different location than across from John Morrell and Company. And so the impact that will have in terms of not only economic development, but remember what I said a couple months ago, commercial development opportunities. That's what's so important. And that's why you have to determine that site before you can actually do this thing correctly. We don't want to use assumptions anymore, folks. We don't. We want things to be concrete. Because, again, you can't pull wool over these people's eyes in South Dakota and Sioux Falls, or they'll bite back. And we want this to be successful. So we'll let the experts do their work and then go from there. Councilor Jameson.
Councilor Erpenbach.
Can you clarify for me, this economic impact study is it technically in the current RFP for the A&E people? It is not, is what I'm hearing from the back. Okay. Then, is this a separate RFP, and what is the timeline for that RFP?
We haven't determined the exact timeline other than we know the money is available next year to use. As I said in my presentation, the timeline is estimated to be 8 to 10 weeks. We want to work with the AE team to get to a point where they feel comfortable that they have identified 2 locations that they think will meet the criteria for us to analyze. We've gone through RFPs in the past. Everybody knows that we use CSNL. We've used them about 3 different times. I know that's one of the companies that has been recommended for us to use again. So we haven't developed an RFP, but we've talked about wanting to get somebody available early in the process so that by the time the AE review is ready to do the analysis, we'll have them on board.
Go ahead, Councilor Erpenbach.
So stay there for a minute, Mike. If the AE people are going to be on by the 1st of January, And then very quickly after that is going to be the contract manager at risk on board, right? Where in that timeline does this consultant for the economic impact study fit? Because if you've got a contract manager at risk that you're going to require to say, we're not going above this line in terms of cost, how do they do that without the economic impact study?
Right now, we're estimating that about 45 days into the process is when we'll be ready to do the economic analysis. That's just an estimate at this time.
So how does that compare to when that contract manager at risk is supposed to be doing his or her job?
I'll let Mark help eliminate some of the confusion on that one.
I think that, anytime, once we get the architect and engineer started, and there is, in the RFP, we've listed a number of things that we want them to focus on. We've also opened it up because they are the experts. We'll get this matrix. Along the way, the construction manager at risk will be working with them. We would also expect that before the final answers of that matrix are done, that this economic team can begin, because there is some new information that they need to update their models for what's already been studied previously, because that's in some cases a year and a half old. And so they will be able to start a little bit ahead of the final matrix being done. But in many of these cases, they'll all work in parallel, because there is just so many things that they can do. And I would expect that very early on, this architect and engineering team and the CS construction manager at risk team will see probably the most probable site rise to the top at both locations. So then they can both start drilling down and getting the answers. So I would expect that there'll be a lot of work in parallel.
And you know what, Councilor Offenbach, in the next 30-day presentation, what we'll do, we'll outline again another, it's called project plan or timeline for folks to see, so it makes it more, maybe a little bit easier to understand. We'll kind of throw it all together and come up with a project plan.
That sounds like a Cotter graph to me.
Yeah.
Multicolors and things up and down.
Trying to make it simple.
So, but just understand that as a part-time city council member who is elected to oversee some of this process and how we're going to spend this money, that it's really important for me to understand and to be able to explain to my constituents how that contract manager at risk, construction manager at risk, is going to give us a guaranteed price that isn't inflated because they don't have the answers on the economic impact study. Understand that's my concern.
It's also our concern.
Councilor Brown?
Mayor, I just have, and I don't need long answers on these, but these are constituent questions that I've had. First of all, on the number of seats. My understanding that there are really three kinds of seating. There's permanent seating, adjustable, removable, and floor seating. Does the 12,000 seats encompass all of those?
These are, well, what I understand, 12,000 sellable seats.
Total capacity.
Yeah, well, you can actually have, you can increase that as well. People can, for example, if they want to sit on the floor or things like that, you can, but these will be 12,000 sellable seats.
These would be the permanent bowl and suite seats you're talking about. So then the adjustable, removable seats, bleachers would be in addition to that, and then floor space would be in addition to that?
I'll just add to that. Again, I think we'll drill down on some of these because there is some terminology that we don't want to get caught into traps. But essentially, if a ticket can be sold for that seat, and it will exclude where the players sit, where the referees sit, where the ticket takers sit, and potentially the band, if they get comped, those are not sellable seats. Everything else is, as we've been told, to qualify for this NCAA Division I tournament, you have to establish 12,000 sellable seats for a basketball game. And I would expect that'll be anything from a fixed seat to a loge seat to a suite seat to a bleacher seat.
And while you're there, Mark, you might want to stay close. Does that mean we're building a basketball arena? You know, many compare Sioux Cities to a hockey arena.
Right.
Are we looking at a basketball facility?
No, it's that's just one of the criteria, and we had this discussion with contractors, is that when some of the best clients at least have one or two single identified design things that you need to start. Whether you're building a house and you want to say, I need a 1,700 square foot house, with 2 bathrooms and a double garage. At least they start with something. And essentially, if you look at many of these floor plans, you can have these architects lay out a 12,000-seat basketball facility, 12,000 sellable seats, and then the other component is whether there's an atrium built on to one end for a grand entrance, there might be a Hall of Fame space, and then the outside of the facility is what they call the building envelope. Those are kind of the other things, but they'll start at the beginning, the basketball floor, and then they'll build up to 12,000 sellable seats. But then know that a lot of those ground seats will get pushed out when the ice comes in for the regulation hockey. More seats will go away when there's a motocross race. And so, again, we just tried to have one footprint or one design component that says it has to have 12,000 sellable seats for a basketball event, and then but it has to go from everything from arena football to basketball to motocross, that whole suite of events that the mayor had mentioned.
So in terms of marketing it, is it going to be marketed to the small and moderate consistent usage that we see today, like a replacement for the arena, or is it going to be also designed for those larger infrequent events?
Councilor Brown, that's a perfect question, and it's very appropriate. Just kind of give you a flavor, these are just some of the things that we're going to have in this new, these events that we're going to have in this new facility. And you certainly don't want to attend a church service for 12,000 people unless you can fill it up. So one of the other criteria that we're going to have with this new event center is that we also want to use it for more intimate events as well, smaller events. And right now, the technology exists to where you can actually make these more intimate so that you can enjoy it, whether it's 1,000 people within your event center or 14,000 people in your event center, and they'll make that happen. So that'll also be one of the criteria, and they'll make sure that they work that out for us.
Any other questions? I have a couple.
Sure, Councilor Jensen.
I always get to go last.
That's fine. You've earned that.
One of the biggest questions I keep getting asked is, where's it going to be, downtown or out at the arena? And or they keep telling me, whatever you do, make sure it's here or there. And what's odd about this process is that, as I understand it, we will have nothing to say about where that goes. Is that true? This council will have nothing to say about this location. I just kind of want to clear up the air.
Councilor Jensen, I do not understand your question. I apologize.
Okay, well, do you think that the council will get a chance to vote and decide on which location they think is better or worse based on all those criterias, the economic impact study, the site analysis, and all those things? Will the council have a chance?
Well, what I would expect, Councilor Jameson, is that this is going to be a project that we're going to work on together as a team, and that ultimately, that's why we're having these meetings. We're trying to be open, transparent. We're trying to work together to figure out what is that common ground, what is the most prudent use of the taxpayer dollar, what will make us proud for generations to come. Now, Councilor Jameson, I don't know if you may not agree with it, or Councilor Aguilar may not agree with it, but at the end, I think that we'll find that common ground. We'll submit a proposal to the people of Sioux Falls so that ultimately they can vote on it.
You know, normally, like when we passed the resolution back in November of '09 for the last task force, we voted on a resolution adopting that proposal. Will that happen here?
Well, you know what? I don't know. That's a year away. Councilor Jim, I don't know. Sorry.
Okay.
I'm still in the education and listening and learning phase.
Okay, well, fair. Has everybody had a chance to read the RFP for this proposal, this project? It's not that long. It's worth reading. I read it today. And one of the concerning questions I had is that choosing the downtown location kind of appears that you're going to leave it up to the team that's whoever's hired, to choose that site. Now, they may not be from Sioux Falls, they may not be from Minneapolis, whoever that selected team is going to be, but it appears like the downtown does not have a specific site selected. That group hasn't selected one, hasn't determined its boundaries, or, you have the arena site that's kind of has some parameters at least to it. Certainly it'll be attached to the convention center. We get that. And just what configuration we don't know, and that's fair. But deciding on the location of the downtown site based on what an outside vendor might think is best or what's available for sale, it seems like there's a huge gap here in deciding where that downtown location is. It's not a spot of land that's for sale today that I don't think anybody knows about, but it almost appears as though if that downtown group came forward with an area that they think would be best, would that be submitted? Could it be submitted as the site versus kind of just a general area?
Councilor, I mean, we're hiring this firm to do the best possible job they can for our city. I expect that they're going to do that. If anyone's got if the Build It Downtown group, for example, if they've got a specific site that they believe is absolutely the best, I mean, they're good public citizens. Let's hear it. They can contact me. They can contact you, Councilor Jameson. They can share that with us, and we'll certainly take that into consideration. I think when you look at downtown, there's not a lot of options unless you certainly were to kind of tear down a bunch of buildings or homes and kind of start from scratch. But if there's a preferred site, please let us know. I've been asking that for quite a while now.
I think some of us know that there isn't specifically a site downtown that's been selected. I think it's more of a concept of where it should be.
The one that was discussed in the past was always called the Sharapa site, and Councilor Jameson was part of that group. That was probably the one that garnered the most attention. Of course, lately we've been talking some about the stockyards and things like that. So again, they'll look at it. They'll take that footprint, and I think they'll do the best job they possibly can for our city.
On the evaluation team that selects the design team, there's 10 people on there. Are they going to be voting? Is there a process to that?
There is. It's a detailed process. It's one that we use for all major projects within the city, and rather than me doing it, Mark, would you mind just giving a brief update?
We have used the process before, and essentially each person on the evaluation team, what we've tried to do, and I should remind the proposers that are maybe here tonight or listening, is that it's not appropriate to contact anyone on that evaluation team, just like the RFP states, that all communications have to go through Chad Heavey, certainly through this selection process. Now, having said that, I wanted to get my disclaimer in because I'm sure that some of these people would potentially get contacted later today. What we do is we'll have two different evaluations. We'll have an evaluation to get us from all the proposals to the short list. And essentially what we'll do is we've blocked off time, and because we expect that, these are all very busy people, that we would like them to come. I believe that initially we'll be at the library, and we'll be able to have them come there. They'll sit for several hours. They'll read presentations, but eventually they'll use our Excel spreadsheet that gives a ranking to the respective areas of the proposals. And then we'll sit and we'll look at how they ranked and then establish the highest qualified teams that we'll invite for interviews. And what we expect is that we'll have a minimum of 3, likely with the caliber of teams that we've seen and have talked to us before the RFP went out. I would expect that we'll have more than 3 that we invite to interview. And we expect that those interviews will be 2 to 3 hour meetings with those teams. And that's a separate, but that's also another Excel spreadsheet that has a list of criteria with respective rankings that we can not only have some numbering system, but also place down below for notes. And again, with 10 people and a very, I'd say, diverse background on the selection team, we're honored that they're able to come and be a part of it, share with what they've learned, but also have a very good evaluation process.
Okay, thank you.
Councilor Jameson, and I apologize, Mark Cotter was smarter than me. He handed me a note, and I just read it. If you read that RFP, and you did read it, Councilor Jameson, you'll see in there it talks about stakeholder meetings, and that, again, is just part of the process. And I can almost guarantee you that some of the good folks from the Build It Downtown group, I'll bet they attend some of those stakeholder meetings. I'll bet they'll have their voices heard. And I know that whoever this RFP or whoever is selected, I'm sure will listen and learn from them as well when it comes to selecting the most suitable site for downtown Sioux Falls.
Just to follow up, is there an opportunity at all? I know these meetings aren't really meant for public input or public discussion, and is there any timeline later for the public to actually weigh in on any of the decisions other than the final vote?
On the RFP, Councilor Jensen?
I think just to, in respect to the evaluation team, and make sure that there is an unbiased discussion, that what we've shared with the teams is that they are confidential, that not only are the proposals confidential, they'll be maintained on file, but they would not be open to the public. We will certainly, our intention is to then come before this body, share with what we've seen, what we've learned, to eventually get to the short list and then to eventually get to the selected firm. But I will tell you that there's some very high-powered teams that are being created, and we're excited to see their ideas that they bring forward. The proposals are due this Friday, the 12th, and then we immediately next week go into the evaluation process.
One other question is that Mark might stay close, but what if no guaranteed maximum price is figured out? What if they just say, look, it's going to be too long of a gap by the time the city votes and it's decided on and the time construction will start? What do you do if you just can't get a guaranteed maximum price?
Well, essentially, I think we're obviously in a buyer's market from a construction standpoint, and from what the industry leaders are telling us, we're still going to be in that market for probably the next 12 to 18 months. But it is critical because these are very specialized trades, and some of the indicators that, whether it's steel, concrete, those types of materials, once they start to go up on a project of this magnitude, will certainly change the price. We did ask, we had 3 teams in last week, and I asked that very question: how long can you guarantee your maximum price? And essentially what it will come down to is the time frame that they have to hold that price will inflate a contingency, because unless you're ready to go to construction that next week, they don't have a crystal ball either. And so that they will have some level of a contingency in their guaranteed maximum price. The key to remember through construction manager at risk is that it's still all publicly bid. It's just not, and so even if we get a price that's at a certain point, say it's at $100 million, and through the public bid process it comes in less than that, that's going to be the price, because what they'll do is they will begin the drawings. Let's look forward and assume that there's a positive community vote. They'll start to do the site prep and the footing and foundation design. And then they'll immediately go to that market and they'll bid that work, and it'll start to go under. And they'll manage about 40 different items, from site prep to roofing materials or seats. And all of these processes will be public bid. The key is that they will not be able to exceed what they provided us as a guaranteed maximum price, if that makes sense. So the key is we are in a buyer's market. This is a fantastic time to be building any infrastructure or facilities. We've seen that in many bids, and so time is of the essence. So,
Maybe just one other follow-up comment on the presentation today. You ran through the slides on the survey. It was done by Kello and Argus Leader. I don't remember a time when we frankly ever thought that we didn't want an event center. I don't remember a time when anybody has ever said, do we want an event center? I think the question's always been, how are we going to pay for it? How are we going to pay for it, and will it make money? I think that's the other story that's missing from the survey. I don't know that, I think you said it, nobody's really shocked about these results, but half the story is still missing.
And Councilor Jameson, we're only in chapter 1 of the book, so hang on. And again, we've talked about all of the pieces of the puzzle, and we're not going to answer them all. What we'd ask you to do is stay patient, stay professional, let's stay fair, let's stay balanced, let's work towards progress versus posturing and politics and all that stuff, and I think you're going to find we're going to make great things happen with this project. There's so many different topics to talk about. The funding, just like you just talked about, Councilor Jameson, and we'll get to that. The size, Councilor Brown talked a little bit about that tonight. Location, oh my gosh, we've been talking about that. The parking, the timing, the uses, the economic impact, operations, and traffic. We will get through all these. We will. And we'll continue to just keep working through it, whether it's through informational meetings, Councilor Jameson, meetings like this. We're going to keep working through it because the public needs to know all this before they vote. Thank you.
Any other questions today? All right, thank you, Mayor.
We truly appreciate the opportunity. Thank you very much, Sioux Falls, and thank you, City Council. We do appreciate it.
Okay, that concludes our presentations. I do have one other comment on our open discussion. There was a invitation sent to us for the Sioux Falls Development Foundation annual event. The clerk's office just needs to know if there's going to be a quorum there so they can prepare the public documents or notices necessary. Councilor Entman.
I will be gone, and I think I informed the council this before, but this evening I am leaving and I will be out of town on business until returning this Friday. And again, next week I will be leaving following our Tuesday meetings, and I will be gone through the weekend next week also on other commitments that I've made. So I will be out of town for the next 2 weeks.
Okay.
I will be gone also.
All right, part of the intent just is to notify the clerk's office, because I think most of us will generally attend, and I'm sure there'll be enough of us for a quorum. Do we need to vote to go in executive session? Okay, next on our agenda is an executive session. In order to do that, we need to vote to go into it. We've got a couple items to cover.
So moved. Oh.
I need to make a motion first to go into executive session after it. Okay, I've got two reasons for our executive session. First, personnel issue under South Dakota Codified Law 1-25-21, and also a pending litigation under South Dakota Codified Law 1-23-23. I need a motion to go into executive session. Motion made by
Councilor Jameson, if I may add, there's
yes.
a typographical error on the second one. It should be 1-25- the third subpart and not 23.
Okay, clerk has that noted. We'll get clarification on that. We have a motion by Rolfe, and we need a second.
Second.
Second by Entman. All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Okay, thank you. Also, all those in attendance, if you could clear the room for us just as soon as possible. All those who are not in the executive session, please clear the chamber. Thank you. We are adjourned to the executive session.
5 minutes.